Hello, everyone, and welcome back to one more series by Address. Today, we'll be talking about mediation, which involves armed personnel. Let's see how it is different from regular mediation. What makes it different? We have a very interesting speaker for today, Mr. Sumesh, and he has given a lot of lectures related to mediation also. And let's hear from him what he's going to say. Welcome, Mr. Sumesh. Just for quick information, this series is powered by Address, which is a real-time environment for dispute resolution. And I would like to discuss with you about mediation related to armed forces and veterans. And before we get into the actual topic, I would like to introduce very briefly about you to our audience. And Mr. Sumesh is an alumni of Symbiosis Law School from Pune, and he has an IIM from Bangalore. He's also got an LLM degree, and he got two awards in armed forces. And if I start reading out his resume, it's going to take up probably the entire session. But briefly, he is enrolled with the Bar Council of Kerala, and now, after his voluntary retirement, he is practicing as an advocate. So, Mr. Sumesh, my very first question to you would be, what are what is the meaning of veterans? We use that loosely, but a lot of people don't understand that.
Yes, a veteran, anybody who has served in the armed forces, whether he's from the army, navy, or air force, once he retires from the armed forces, they are categorized as veterans. It's a very broad term, but veteran connoting their service in the armed forces.
And they don't get any special treatment or privileges after retirement.
Yeah, technically, while they are in service, they have having certain privileges in priority in for litigation in wherever they are located. But once they retire, mostly they go back to their towns or maybe settle down in other cities. So they are like any other ordinary citizen, but with a status that that you are a military veteran, you're armed forces veteran. That is the only difference, and you recognize for that as an ex-serviceman. Also, there is one more terminology used: ex-serviceman or
Yes.
veteran. But then, yes, I would like to tell you that there is a very large community of retired officers, junior commissioned officers in Jawans pan India. Because once they retire, they go back to the respective towns, and the armed forces consist of people from across India. So there is equal distribution of such a particular group of people who are residing in every corner of the country.
One of a friend of mine who's retired from the army, he was asked once where his native place is, and he said it's India.
Ah, correct.
And then he said that the constitution allows him to settle down anywhere in the country, and he said it doesn't matter where I'm from.
Correct.
So, anyways, moving to the topic at hand, what happens if there is some dispute in the army? How does that get resolved?
Army has got a very well structured system of dispute resolution. It's so well organized that the person needs to only raise his grievance at the initial stages, and there are laid down channels by which it is resolved.
So, there's like a separate court for the armed forces, or
Yes, there are two aspects of it. For regular, grievances of routine nature, their own regimental system, the units have got a system of grievance redressal, which is very robust, and in all cases, it is resolved. And in case of certain things which are beyond and there are can be classified as some other offenses or something, so there is a proper act existing in the armed forces, and there is a process to take on with the disciplinary proceedings or other kinds of administrative actions that are already laid down, and it is well formulated.
so those cases will not come to the regular courts, they'll be handled by the army itself.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, now let's come to the civilian world from the armed forces. But what happens when there's a conflict between armed forces and civilians? Do we have Rambo 1, Rambo 2, Rambo 3, or is there a potential? How do we solve those things?
Yeah, because as of now, the problem with the armed forces veterans or even serving people face is that once you are back, or when you have a matter as simple as, if I say, if I have a property in a city and I have leased it out on rent to a tenant, and there is a dispute on, probably vacation of the flat, what do I do now? It's a
Hmm.
very, very common issue. And the problem compounds because the availability of the individual is for, the duration is less. So there is a requirement to have a system by which he is able to, finish that dispute at a faster rate, maybe cost effective, and something which allows him to go back to his work peacefully.
Now, is there any priority for the armed forces? Why should we prioritize? I mean, let our defense or border be without that one particular person. Can we function that way?
No, it's not about that. There is already provision existing where priority is accorded to the armed forces people for litigations which are pending in courts. As also there is, provisions by which cases are taken up through the district administration by the units to afford them assistance, because the person is discharging a particular duty, and he cannot be kind of bound by the normal functioning of this thing. So if there is a priority is accorded, in most of the cases priority is accorded, people do give due to the people who approach the various forums for dispute resolution. They do get it.
So now, let me just clarify for our viewers that it is only a priority of, let's say, fast track legal administration, but not any preferential treatment. The law is the
Not
law. The
really.
law of the land is the law of the land, whether it is armed force person or any other personnel. But the armed forces get a priority in
Correct,
terms
correct. They
of
get a priority
a
because
fast
they
track.
have to go back. Yeah, they have to go back to the units. They're not available. Maybe dates being given for the next hearing may clash with his leave scheme of things. So that does happen.
Okay. So what type of now again before we get into the what type of disputes, I want to say why should we prioritize veterans? I mean, I can understand prioritizing armed personnel, but why should we prioritize veterans? Is it out of respect that they served earlier in the armed forces, or is there any other reason?
Not really, I would say priority to the veterans, but it's because unlike a normal person who is residing in the same place, maybe I feel that they may not be able to attend to their matters as effectively as any other normal person who is residing in the same place. Probably, but there is no such. Not to my knowledge that any priority is accorded or some post for people who are retired and are veterans. That is of course there. And natural, the routine respect that people have is a different thing, but in this process it is, I don't think it is there for veterans.
Okay, so most of the priority is given only for the armed personnel who are in service.
In service.
Okay, great. So, can you tell us what type of disputes regularly that crop up for armed personnel? A quick general list.
It could be anything. We're only talking from the civil disputes which are can be discussed from the mediation point of view. So there are many commercial disputes are there. They also have properties which are on rental, and issues of vacation disputes between as with the landlord tenant, or maybe having consumer issues. That is something very normal and which comes to everybody. I buy a particular item from a shop, maybe there's an issue with that, or I buy a four-wheeler, there is an issue. How do I follow it up? A normal person can afford to actually go behind the whole thing. Even for matters of banking issues, I do banking, net banking, everybody's doing. A dispute arises of some transaction. How do I go behind it?
What
Or
about
if yeah, or if I have got a dispute within my family, some kind of family disputes are there. There is a marital issue. The marital issue is there. How do I go about it? So these things, when they go to the normal scheme of things along with the others, probably they start losing. They're not able to follow it up.
so? What about situations like child custody or maybe divorce? Again, I don't know what the divorce rate is separately for the armed personnel, but I think that should
No,
be.
I don't have a data for that, because the data would be same of what is there for a country as such. But the issue is again, attending to the cause is more important. That how frequent is that person able to come back and attend to that matter, and because he is not at the place or the jurisdiction where the matter is taking place, is there an alternative for him to somehow resolve it without stretching it for some duration, even if it is for 1 year? His availability may be something which is which is to be discussed.
Now, one of my friends, like seniors in a veteran actually from the armed personnel, told me that the rate in armed personnel is very less. One, because they are very disciplined and they want things to work, not just to flare up and go for a divorce at the very first instance.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
second, even the family members before marriage, they are mentally prepared that there are certain things which they have to put up with, such as long leave of absence, and end of the day, that is the least amount of patriotism that we can do, and
Yes.
holds when the person really needs. So I think once we look at the data, I'll have to differ with you there that the divorce rate among armed personnel would be very, very low.
No, it
That's
is
my
low
personal
because, yeah,
opinion.
it is low, definitely. But times are changing and there are issues which are existing. It is not that I'm saying, that the number is high or low, but of course there would be cases, whether it is
Obviously.
marital discord, whether it be family discord, whether it not just for serving, for retired also. Someone is retired, their children have disputes, there's the property division issues. So many issues are there, which probably requires a system by which the veterans or the serving can approach a system which helps them in easing it out.
Is there such a law right now? Is there a separate mediation act or an arbitration act or an armed personnel legal services act or something like that?
No, as of now, it is not there. But then, with the mediation growing popularity in the country, there is a subtle awareness that is coming that we have an option by which we can resolve our disputes without going through the process which is existing as of now, an alternate system of resolution of dispute. That awareness is coming, and I personally, as a defense personnel, a retired defense personnel, I feel that there is a emergent need for everybody to know that there is a existing system and which can be very beneficial for them.
So the mediation act that is now in place, you believe that it's going to be more useful for army personnel?
Oh yes, I feel I'm a great enthusiast of ADR and in particular mediation. And I feel that all the benefits that are accorded to mediation just fit in into a template for the armed forces personnel.
Now, the reason I was stammering a little bit while I was asking my earlier question is this is not a new concept of ADR. It's been around, including the CPC talks about various modes of ADR. So why is it that it's of importance today, but not yesterday or a few days ago?
One reason I can attribute is technology. Technology is something that has actually reduced geographical distances. The that has completely changed now. If we talk about mediation, and the awareness levels for ADR has gone up, there is a push from every side, and one of the result is this mediation act, that there is a growing awareness that we need to reduce our disputes and find an alternative by which we things which can be resolved with mutual consent should be resolved like that only. One should use the technology that is available. There are a whole lot of online platforms where people sitting in different places can come together. There are availability of professionally trained mediators now. Everything is available now. There is a requirement to bring it onto a platform so that people can exploit this and get over with the disputes that are pending for long.
Now, have you or in your experience noticed any difference in mediation between regular civilians versus armed personnel and civilians, or where armed personnel was involved, whether it is a veteran or in service, doesn't matter? Did you find any difference?
No, not really, because everybody's concerned. One thing that I tell everybody when they talk about mediation or come in for mediation is that, it is a voluntary process. Both the parties have to be willing for a mediation, that you both know that there is an issue, number one. Number two, that you want to resolve it. And number three is that you have decided to resolve it by using a professional help from a mediator. So, moment these three criteria are fulfilled, Whether it is a civilian, a veteran, or a survey, it becomes the same, because the objective, I think, you shed the skin of all that, and you are coming in with the singular mentality that I have identified my dispute, I want it to be resolved, and I will use this method and the best possible to get a mutually acceptable solution to it and get over with this.
Okay. I may share one experience with me, with you, that was shared with me by a senior. He said that, again, the senior which I'm talking about is very persistent and very authoritative in his own way. And in a case that was involving an armed personnel, it was an officer of a higher rank, and he was stubborn. He was trying to intimidate the mediator himself. So the mediator had to actually break him down. It was almost like a psychological counseling where the mediator had to break him down, and then he could see the reality. Once he lost that false aura of superiority, and then he became an ordinary citizen. Of course, as an armed person, he was still in service, but in that mediation room, he is like any other civilian. So once he realized that he is similar to others, then things started working. So it is not just sometimes simple to deal with, let's say, a person with authority, because even there is a pride which goes in being armed personnel. I never served in army, but I salute when I see somebody, at least in my heart, physically if possible. But some people take the pride to the next level, and then they start becoming arrogant to some extent in certain proceedings. Like in just like any other human being, armed personnel are also humans. Of course, however much you are trained, end of the day, that emotion will come up. And once you start exhibiting your superiority, mediation will not work.
That is all about the mediator. That is why it is important that you have a professional mediator who is able to, the basics of mediation, that he's able to understand the issues and the position, and draw them out from that and get going. I'll leave it totally purely to the mediator, because the mediator is one person, whether he's a civilian, whether he's an armed forces person, whether he's a merchant navy person, it makes no difference, because when people are coming, they're not, that very famous quote that mediation we say, that, separate the problem and the people. There is a problem. There is a person, you can't identify both of them together. You, as a mediator, my job is to identify the problem. The man is not wrong, the problem is the one which is causing him to go off. So it's important to separate the person from the problem, identify it, and then help them to come to a conclusion to their issue. That is, I'll say it's totally up to the mediator. The mediator, and that's why I often say that the mediator has to be someone who's professional, who is willing to deep dive into it and find the issues, find the positions, and suggest solutions which are acceptable to both of them, and they come to a conclusion which they feel is, win-win for them.
Yeah, I think what I kind of get the sense towards the mediation involving armed personnel or veterans is that the mediator requires a different psychology to stand his ground when he's correct, and to be strong enough at least to inform the armed personnel that, listen, this is the situation, and exactly in your own words, separate the person from the problem. So that's what the mediator
No,
needs to
but
do.
I will differ here, because in normal course also we come across so many people who are without, generally it is a person, first of all, who's coming for mediation, has got an issue, and they come with a mindset. How is it going to happen? What is he going to do? What are we going to discuss? Will we find a solution? There are a lot of insecurities when people walk in for mediation, because they are not aware about it. And some people, one of the party will always be, holding on the fort, not allowing you to breach through and find out the the core of it. That's always there.
Hmm. Well, we can have a different opinion, but I think we both are probably on the same page when it comes to that mediation is the same. But maybe we need to have a special mediation session, or get more feedback from mediators on how they had or their experiences were in handling armed personnel.
Yeah,
So,
because there are two parts of it. One is when one of the parties maybe not armed forces personnel and is commercially or maybe as some other dispute, and the other person dies. When we talk about the other situation, when it is family mediation, or when it's a veteran and his own family in which there is a
hmm.
dispute and we are trying to resolve, then it doesn't make really, it's all the same.
All right. I think this was an interesting talk which we had, and if there's anything else you'd like to add, we can do that, or we can call it a day here.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great talking to you, Dr. Reddy. And I only wanted, my purpose was that, there is a need to spread awareness about mediation and what are the benefits that are available with mediation, which I've already told that, it gives you, one, it is available to everybody, and gives you the benefit of time, the time management, the cost factor is there, and you have got the advantage of coming out with a solution which is not imposed by anyone, which is your own solution, and overall walking out with a solution which is suitable to all of you. So it fits the bill, and the time factor, which is very critical for people who are in services, uh, and is taken care of because of the availability of technology, and also the time frames that are, if you go through the mediation act, you find the time frames are so fixed, so the chances of it wearing off is very very difficult. And I would propagate that everyone should try this, and if possible that you should always give an attempt to mediation before you venture out into any other form of redressal of dispute.
All right. That sounds great, and a nice concluding remark. With that, I'll conclude this session. And once
Thank you,
again,
thank you
thank you
so
for your
much.
time.
Thank you, sir.